Welcome to the best of the Chris Vernon Show, presented by Direct Auto Insurance from the American Home Shield Studio inside FedEx Forum. To watch the live show daily at noon or on demand, head over to grindcitymedia.com or Grind City Media on YouTube. Now, let's take a look back at some of the best moments of the week.
The last phrase in the entire article is a Sonny quote, and it says, "There's a market for every demographic and age group in the world. That's why they make baby food and put a baby on the bottle. There's a value of the individual they said had no value. Thousands of kids will benefit from a few kids' efforts a long time ago. It's one of the happiest days of my life." Sonny Vaccaro is a legendary shoe executive. He's the godfather of grassroots basketball. He is one of our absolute favorite guys. The Godfather's here. Sonny, it's been too long.
It has, Christopher. It has. A lot of things have passed under us and over us, but we're at this day, and I'm happy that I can talk to you and your fans, and I'm happy that I read Dan Wilkins' article today, and I had talked to Dan, and in fact, for your audience, I met him at Richard Southpaw, one of his first meetings. He was down at the University of Memphis for sports backing and all that. And Richard Southpaw was an advocate for the athletes, and Dan was in the audience, and that was the first time, I think, the only time I ever saw him. And we've been talking over the years, and then he writes his story, which I knew it was a story, but I thought of other people, but it hit home. I mean, it was something that I didn't anticipate or ask for or wouldn't have thought of unless Dan called me, and him being a great reporter, this is what we got. And I feel, and I've said this to you a number of years, you especially, because I've probably done media with you longer than anybody. I mean, it's been years since you were first a young whippersnapper, and we started talking from Memphis, and the various changes you've made in your life. But I've been live to Memphis, and it's ironic that here we are at the end of nothing's. I don't want to be morbid here, but at the end of this world that I entered, and I probably said to you, Chris, a couple of times, that this would be my ultimate dream. And I said to Dan's column, I didn't know I'd live to see it. Well, we haven't. It's not entirely done, but it's done. Abandoned what we started out to do with all the the naysayers a long time ago, Eddie and all the plaintiffs and Michael Hosfield and Ken Feinberg and everybody involved with the case, and all the other athletes that backed Eddie up, and including Bill Russell and Elgin Baylor, and I mean all these guys. Oscar Robertson was so helpful. So now you take over. I'm sorry, but I had to say that.
Okay, so for those unaware, when you talk about this being one of the happiest days of your life, I do just want to give a little background. I was actually, and this speaks to how long we have been speaking about this very subject. Right before you came on, I told the story about how when I came home from the hospital after my son was first born, there was a huge box from you and your wife of baby clothes you sent him. But Sonny, my son is 10 now. So, I was telling that story like it was yesterday. My son is 10. And so that's how long, you've been fighting this fight, a lot longer than that. But just to put it into context, all right, so once upon a time, Ed O'Bannon is playing the video game because I think there's a lot of people now, it happened so long ago that they don't really know how it all happened. Ed O'Bannon is playing a video game. It is the EA Sports college basketball video game. There's the 1995 UCLA team on the game. Ed O'Bannon is 6'9", looks exactly like Ed O'Bannon, is left-handed. It's Ed O'Bannon, right? And he's thinking, wait, how come we don't make anything off of this? And so the original fight was, and this is why you got Bill Russell, Oscar Robertson, all these people involved, was they can't own you forever, right? If Florida sells a Tim Tebow jersey after he's gone from the school, Tim Tebow should benefit. Or if Cincinnati sells a Oscar Robertson signed lithograph, he should make some money off of that. The idea that they own you forever was really the fight, but now that has morphed into something even much greater, which is being able, and so that fight was, you won the fight, right? And so then people then unfortunately blamed it for the reason we don't have college games, in the video games. And I would always tell people, the truth is the reason we don't have college video games is because they don't want to pay people that was free. They had to do it for free. And so instead of anybody benefiting from it outside of them, they just paid the colleges, and then they got to use all of these guys' likenesses. And so now this might be a step towards, so that was one fight, but it's gone further. And now it is the current players, and can the current players benefit off of their name and likeness while they are in school? And that is what they are having to discuss today, which I believe is why you said this is one of the happiest days of your life.
Yeah. It is, and you summed it up real well, and I know people could follow you. But it started from that and got to this, and it took all that time. But we got there, and I'm still here on earth, and thank God through all the things we've gone through, and me personally, but not to be selfish, these kids and these athletes. And the thing that I loved about Dan's article was that last paragraph. And then if you go one step further, Chris, you would have said, and women are now going to be able to profit. Because when we started talking, you and I, over various amount of subjects, women were an afterthought. Remember, it was Title IX. We can't do this because Title IX. Well, Title IX was the lesser groups and women's basketball, women's sports. I mean, well, you know what? Women's sports, these athletes are going to be compensated. And I just think we saw an emergence of a superstar, whether she's going to be that great on the court, is the Ionescu girl, the one who was eulogized at Kobe's tragedy, the thing for Kobe a couple months ago, where she was Kobe's, person. He loved women's basketball. Well, we've not only watched women's basketball, we've watched women's soccer and swimming and ice skating and everything else that they do play in college. Well, and I can always think of the Ledecky girl, the great swimmer that had 9,000, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, gold medals, but she couldn't make 5 cents, and and all these young girls their value is valuable, and that's sort of what that thing with the baby thing. I never said that before in my life, but that's what it is. Women have a market value now, and that's all I ever wanted.
But the idea, right? The idea is that's a good one, Katie Ledecky, right? Who could not risk everything or else not be able to go to college because she had made all of this money, therefore no longer being an amateur. So the idea was always everybody else can make a lot of money off of Katie Ledecky except for Katie Ledecky, right? Which, I mean, I think any reasonable person thinks is goofy.
Well, it is, and hopefully it was. That's what we're coming to. And I just read the other day that Katie's swimming in her backyard swimming pool to go back to the Olympics, and that's why she passed up all the money to go back to the Olympics. And God forbid that these Olympics are canceled or whatever reason. We know why they are now. But the point was the fragility of the athlete and time that they can earn money, Chris, is minute by minute. You and I both know that. If Zion Williamson would have broke his ankle that day, we never would have been talking about Zion, and maybe because he's really a good kid and it'll add to society, similar to what LeBron has done. But my point here is it could all been over for what? Let's be honest. For what?
Oh, think about Tua. He just got drafted very highly. But, we are at maybe a centimeter away from career ending with what happened with his hip.
And you know what? It still may resurface, and we don't know that until he's hit again. That's when I go back and I look at all these names over all these years, it's game, set, match. And Chris, one of the most horrible things I've ever, watched during my lifetime in sports, it's nice for the moment, but God forbid when one of these athletes gets one of those injuries, whether it's concussion or broken leg, and they're tied into that thing the thing that they take you to the hospital truck over on sidelines, and the kids put their hands up and they say, thumbs up, I'm okay. You know what, Chris? Unfortunately, that thumb up was the last time they were able to move their hands or arms or think or definitely play sports again. It's such a infinite number of minutes you have to play a sport and earn money. You can be like Stephen King. We know a lot of people in history that had a lot of deformities and problems with everything except their mind, and they went on to have the most productive lives in the world. But an athlete can only be productive if he can produce playing ball.
So the NBA Board of Governors is going to meet today. It's going to take formal steps forward towards allowing athletes to profit off their name, image, and likeness in ways that would have been considered blasphemous by the so-called leaders of college athletics just a few years ago. This is what Dan Wolken wrote. Product and apparel endorsements? Sure. Paid autographs? Why not? Selling memorabilia to make a few bucks? That's likely going to be allowed too, according to the recommendations made by a working group that college presidents deputized last fall to study how to modernize NCAA rules with the organization under significant pressure from federal and state lawmakers. The question becomes, Sonny, it's the irony of all this is truly unbelievable, because as they meet today to decide how much they will allow a kid to make off of himself, we have another announcement. I don't know if you heard this, but this morning we'd already had Jalen Green and Isaiah Todd. Jalen Green, possibly the top player in this class, going to do the G League, a developmental year. Isaiah Todd, who was going to go to Michigan, who was a top 50 recruit, followed suit. And now possibly the top point guard in the class of 2021, so not even this upcoming class, Dasheen Nix, who is committed to UCLA, decommitted this morning, is going to the G League, and is going to make upwards of $300,000. Just, right off the bat. Who knows what else the kid might end up with by the time. So as they are discussing in these meetings if they're going to let somebody sell their bowl jersey or sign a basketball and sell it or whatever else, you've got a kid saying, I'm not going to college, I'm going to go make $300,000. The irony of all of this is that, for at least basketball-wise, we've got to at least broach the subject that it might be too late.
Well, it might be, but what it will do is allow, let's say, that, because they're only taking 5 kids, I think. Am I right, Chris? So these 5 kids, so they got 3, and there's 2 more. That's what I understand from pretty good sources, okay? So what it'll do, though, it may detour you if you're pretty good, but you're not that good or something like that, even thinking about doing it, because now you can go and earn. And you know what, Chris? A couple of these kids might earn, I'm saying might very loosely, Chris. The Green kid, from what I understand, is everything that some of these other ones are also. I don't think he's Zion, but I don't know. I knew Zion much better than I knew this kid. But my point here is it may stop somebody, but it's not going to stop anybody. And I keep going back to the Simmons kid at LSU. Remember him? And remember that video they did on him? I thought that was one of the most honest videos an athlete ever did in their life, when he actually mocked what the hell was happening at LSU. And correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but I thought that was he just said, what am I doing? And then when the season was over, he was the first one to say, what am I doing? I packed whatever bag he had and he left. Well, I think they can put a stop to that. I think by allowing not so much a Simmons kid or, the Green kid or Zion possibly, that would have been, in my mind, a sacrilege if he'd have gone to college under these things right now. But my point to you is it may allow some of them to stay in. And if some of them don't stay in, that $100 billion they're paying for the Final Four, it's going to be interesting someday, Chris.
Well, let me ask you this, Sonny, because you are, the way this all started, you were the original guy to sign up shoe deals with university athletic programs, okay? So I did wonder this, if they're going to open it up to being able to make money off your likeness. Is a possible situation where Zion Williamson says, I will go to Duke. You know what? I don't want to do the G League thing. I've always wanted to go to college. I want to play in the NCAA tournament. I want to play for Coach K. I will go to Duke. And then Under Armour says, hey, we'll give you $100 million to wear our shoes at Duke. But Duke's already got a ridiculous deal with Nike. I mean, this is something that can't come up, right? Am I crazy here?
Chris, I swear to God Almighty, okay? Kobe Bryant, in his infinite wisdom as a child, turned to me at the dinner when he finally announced he was going. At the press conference we had for him in New York City, we went to an Italian restaurant, and he turned to me. Never before was it ever discussed. Now, he was about, he was going to sign the Adidas contract for over $1 million, and Joe was getting paid and all that sort of stuff. He turned to me, and it was over a dish of pasta, okay? And he said, Mr. Vaccaro, if I would have gone to Duke, that's why I believe today he was going to Duke, could I have signed this contract with you? It was never discussed, Chris. You know what I'm saying? Because at that point in time, he wasn't going to go. We never thought of signing a high school kid, going to college. We never did that. And I said to him, Kobe, there's no way in hell you were going to wear whatever. And he says, well, I made the right decision. It was big, one of those smiles he has. He obviously made a decision before he even knew that answer, Chris. But I'll never forget. That would have been something that he would. What if we would have given him $1 million in 1996? You know what I'm saying? Maybe he would have. Maybe they'd all go stay in school. I don't know, but it's all about money.
But what I'm saying is, does this destroy that whole amount of money that the schools get? You can speak from this from a business side. Let's say I've got, obviously it's great to have the best players, but if I've got, I don't know, Alabama as a Nike school, but I get Tua wearing Adidas cleats, all of a sudden, who's getting the money, the kid or the program?
Well, isn't that what this is about?
I guess so.
Why should I started this in 1976, 77, tell your audience. I went directly to the coaches. The coaches have never been harmed by accepting the money that me and the rest of the shoe companies did for the next 50 years, Chris. Why shouldn't a player do it? And the reason I said it, and it's documented, and it will be when you finally read the end of Sonny's life, my point to you is we signed them so I can get those kids to wear the shoes. And I said to Phil Knight and Rob Strasser, the high school kids, we'll get the high school kids, but not only that, we're now going to get the college guys. Why are we getting? Well, the coaches are going to make them wear the shoes, and we don't have to pay the college guys. Chris, that was the whole platform of my idea in 1970. I never shied away from that, and you were on, you'd always come up with somebody who was beating my butt up or something. I started it. No, I didn't start it. The schools let me do it. I paid their coaches who gave the kids our shoes and wore them. Now what's going to happen? Towel could have got his own deal. They all could get their own. We don't give it, not shoe companies or anybody, no one cares who in the hell gets the money as long as their product is sold, Chris. Let's be honest about that to your audience today. Kobe Bryant would have got the money. If I thought he was good enough to do that, why wouldn't I think he's good? He's a celebrity. I thought high school kids were a celebrity in 1976, and they were.
I do have to ask you, as you have seen this all play out, and you said that someone has told you it's only going to be 5 kids a year.
Yeah.
This
year, Chris.
Okay, this year, it's going to expand, right? And the NBA is behind this. So I do want to know what your opinion is of that avenue. Obviously, the kids are being taken care of financially.
Yep. Yes.
So this is an alternate route. It is not going overseas. Once upon a time, you helped with Brandon Jennings going overseas. Emmanuel Mudiay went overseas after he wasn't going to be able to get into SMU. We just saw LaMelo Ball and RJ Hampton playing internationally this year, but this gives a domestic option for it. I am interested in your opinion of this G League route that has been created, and obviously already some high-level prospects are going to take advantage of.
Well, I think you're going to see the end of going to Europe because the ones in the category that the NBA thinks they are by making them one of the 5 this year, they think that next year they're going to get drafted, hypothetically, let's just say in the lottery. If all these 5 kids go in the lottery or go well and do well in this league and they're teaching, the other thing your audience has to know, every coach on the floor for the next 365 days is going to be a professional coach for these kids. There's no high school coach. There's no AAU coach. There's no mom and pop, coaching them. They're professional coaches. They're going to get coaching. Now, that's what always the pitch was, Chris. They're not ready. They're not ready. You know what? Maybe they weren't ready. I don't know if they were, if they weren't. I'm not going to judge them. But I now know the NBA is putting more money into hiring guys that are eventually going to be head coaches in the NBA. They're going to be the assistants. These are people who have given their life to learning the subject of coaching. So they are going to get the best. So I think this year they're betting a lot on these 5 kids. And I think there will be 10 kids next year. If that's your question, naturally.
My question is, do you like the option? Do you like the idea?
Oh, I'm enthusiastic. The only bad thing about it, I wish everybody would do it sooner, because the schools involved, all these kids had a school picked, and then you mentioned UCLA, and I know Mick really well. And but my point there is, I think if they would have known the option all year, I think the recruiting would have stopped. I mean, they're all going to praise their kids and all whatever, but you know what? They can't replace this kid at those 5 schools. You know that, don't you?
Right.
There's no way.
Right.
They're not getting these guys in replacement. They'll get a good player, blah, 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 blah. Because all the good ones are going to go to college now that aren't going to go in the G League here.
Oh, trust me, that Jalen Green kid, after his press conference, he said, if I would have gone to college, I would have gone to Memphis. I mean, it's a different world for our buddy Penny Hardaway if that kid comes to Memphis next year.
Memphis, if James, is that the kid's name?
Wiseman.
The one that got Weidman. Let me tell you, there's another, that helped what I believe was the best thing. His sadness and what they did to him, and I think I said this a long time ago on your show, what they do with him was a sacrilege, because that whole concept of what Penny did or did not do certainly should not, if any sane mind had anything to do with to think he was going to be the coach at Memphis all those years ago. Whatever Penny did to get his AAU team better, him and about 90 other guys that I know and personal friends with probably did the same thing. So I don't want to go through that crap. But what I'm saying, the dynasty was being built. I don't think Green would have been an outlier. I think they were going. I think they were going to be back on top. I don't know what that does now, other than the kids in Memphis are always good. But ladies and gentlemen, Derrick Rose left you guys. James left you guys, and now Green left you guys. And sorry, but you couldn't stay much longer. It's ironic it is him. And the funny thing about it, and I don't know Penny that well. I've only known him that 7 or 8 days at camp or the Round Ball Classic in the 90s, Chris. I'll tell you what he's done in the city of Memphis, what he's done with his personal life, what he's done for kids, all his life, never in the wildest dreams I think of Penny. If he would have had a horrible dream one night and said about a horrible dream that here's my plan, I'm going to get rid of everybody, I'm going to demean them and all that, and I'm going to be the coach. Kenny Hardaway's never been made up like that. So I think, personally, this show does better for the city of Memphis and the people reading because you got screwed. Because this should have happened a long time ago. And then Penny will be able to continue. But that Wiseman kid, whatever his name is, I apologize. I screw up, Chris. But my point there is they were on the – I would have made – if I was still betting with my brother in Las Vegas, which I haven't in 25, 30 years, Chris, I can always say that. But if I would have been, I would have, because my brother told me, he told me what had happened. He said, this kid had as good as chance, and he said kid. He said, this kid, meaning Memphis Tigers, Chris, had as good as chance as anybody in the country of being in the Final Four. How about that?
Oh, I
and
believe
my brother's a professional, ladies and gentlemen.
Your brother, Jimmy Vaccaro, is a legendary bookmaker out in Vegas, and he's dead on right. Let me ask. I've got to ask you quickly about our buddy, our mutual friend for all these years, Dan Wetzel, was on with me a couple weeks ago, and I called Danny up after he was on that HBO documentary, The Scheme, and the subject, Christian Dawkins, of The Scheme, who is the player getter who the feds tried to trap in paying players, coaches to go to different schools and whatnot, said that when he realized he was not going to be a college athlete, that he read this book by Dan Wetzel called Soul Influence, who all of us know you are the subject of the book. Right. And Dan had this unbelievable quote and said, that book's not supposed to be a how-to manual. about how amateur basketball is supposed to work. But I couldn't help but think of you as I'm watching that. Here you have this kid who is running around, moving and shaking to the point where the feds are trying to get him. And he says that he was really inspired to get into what he got into by reading a book about you. Well,
it's funny, and he used my name also, and I was shocked that day. I don't know Christian. I've talked to him a few times on the phone, I'll tell your audience, okay? I knew his daddy. His daddy was a great high school coach. He was always in the other camp with Nike or something like that, but I knew him, legendary. He was a wonderful coach, but he never played for any of my teams. And the way he said it when they trapped him and this idiot who was doing it. And Christian's a young kid still yet. And he said something very prophetic. And obviously, my wife, her hair, got gray. And because she thought it was a negative, I said, Pam, what he was basically saying, the Sonny Vaccaro wouldn't have fell into the trap of that idiot was doing. If something was done there, he was the dumbest guy trying to fix something to trap Christian and all these guys, because he was involved. He was a crook. He was the stupid. I mean, you can't be that stupid and do what he wanted and wanted to turn out this thing differently. But Christian Dawkins also said he was selling ratings to college guys when he was 14. I think the kid's brilliant, personally.
He was brilliant. All right, last thing. We are 4 episodes into The Last Dance, which was the highly anticipated documentary about Michael Jordan. We have covered many times your relationship with Jordan very early in his career and signing him up with Nike originally. As you have watched the first 4 episodes play out, what has stood out to you the most? What have you enjoyed the most about The Last Dance?
Are you sitting down?
Yes.
I will not watch this film, the first 8 films. Okay, I get replays every day, and I read about it from everyone's reading. And the reason I don't, because they interviewed me for 2.5 hours, so right down from my house. So I know that they took my voices. The only trouble with some people in life, and I've got to wait on this because I'm not going to make a statement, I didn't want to see, because I didn't want to either get mad, angry, or happy or whatever. Okay? Let me see what they play out. I know the story. I just don't want no fabrication. So I'm not going to watch it till it's all over. If I'm in it, then they have to use the things I said. You can't doctor it. I don't think the Russians are going to come in and play with the film on this. But my point to you is, I don't know, Chris. I don't know, because I read a book by the owner of Nike literally saying that I didn't exist. Well, I want to tell that story. So we're going to let Michael tell a story. There's no one in the world that has done more for marketing and whatever than Michael Jordan. And that was a great part of my life. So to answer your question, I'm going to watch it at the end. I'm going to watch it when it's all over, because I don't want one way or another to form an opinion without seeing what the end. I don't want to say something now and.
Well, it's interesting because they have not broached at all any of the Air Jordan stuff or the marketing side of it or anything. And I do wonder if they will, because I have seen very briefly David Falk. You've only seen one small interview with him, right, who I know you are not exactly best of friends with. And we haven't seen anything with Phil Knight. There really hasn't been any Nike stuff in there at all. But I do know that there is a challenging of the stories that go on and how it all played out.
Well, in my opinion, there's no challenge. It's just making the record straight. But here's what I'm going to say. I pray for a lot of things, but the only thing that I have to tell you and your audience, they did tape me for 2.5 hours. Now, I like to talk, Chris. You, above all people, know I like to talk.
So you sat down with the makers of this doc?
Yes, for 2.5 hours. Just so we understand that, ladies and gentlemen, listening to this. Now what they do with it, they either edit what I said or cut me out, which is fine, but the editing's not fine. But you know what? Even in editing, they can only put what I said, so whatever. And I was very, very honest. I don't ever deny. Michael Jordan, to me, was one of the highlights of my life. I could never say anything negative about, I would never say it after death. But I just want the truth to be told and how it happened. That's all. So
this is really about Raveling and about Phil Knight and about all of those guys and their version and how their version changed as time has gone on because of your falling out with them.
Absolutely. But you know what? Other than Raveling, I have a personal issue with him longer than whatever. Other than Raveling, and I say it on your show, I have nothing. Phil and Michael and I did the greatest thing in the history of marketing. You can't deny it. I just don't. I want to make sure that everyone doesn't get amnesia on me here.
Fair enough.
That's all.
Hey, if you show up on an episode, I'll be on your phone the next day. Trust me.
Please do, and hopefully. This is a great story. A great whatever. And Dan Walken, and I met him in Memphis and all that sort of stuff. But you know what, Chris? It's the truth. And the other thing I get great pleasure of, the girls are going to get paid. This is a wonderful world. And
everybody's getting paid now, Sonny. Everybody's getting paid now.
Well, that's And there's nothing wrong with it.
No.
Why do we have to make it undercover, right? Why?
No, listen, Ben.
Hey,
history can tell whatever kind of story you want. I know for sure that for over a decade, you fought. You ain't profiting off this. You ain't going to make any money off of this. So who were you fighting for? You obviously cared about athletes being able to make money off of their abilities. And you deserve to have this happy day. Celebrate. Maybe, order something in or something. I know you can't go anywhere.
Well, whatever. I may have my first glass of wine tonight since the thing. I sort of stopped a lot of things for Lent, and then I'm not punishing myself, but Pam and I have both agreed this is suffering, so we're going to continue something, and we both picked out some things that we enjoy every night or whatever. So
there you go.
I'm doing that, but please watch your family. I can't believe the story of all these years. Oh my God,
crazy, right?
Your son. Oh,
crazy.
my God.
Crazy.
All right, God bless you, your family. Watch yourself, please, and everybody listening. And to Penny Hardaway, I meant everything I said. Okay.
Thanks, Sonny.
Bye, guys.
Sonny Vaccaro, legendary shoe executive, godfather of grassroots basketball. Spent many, many years on the show with us every single week, and it's great to catch up with him. Danny!
Verno, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. So you have been writing about money in college athletics for the better part of 20 years. Yeah, forever.
Can't believe it. It actually happened.
I had Sonny Vaccaro on yesterday, 80 years old now, mutual friend of ours, and he said, I believe in Dan Walken's article, the last line of the article is what got me. He said, "This is one of the happiest days of my life."
Awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, and he's been fighting for this for a long time. I think what the big thing is okay. Explain, if you will, to start this conversation, what happened yesterday.
Okay, so they have a thing called the Board of Governors, which approved a plan that was submitted to them by another working group, or I don't know. Things are confusing, but basically by the Board of Governors saying athletes should be able to profit off their name, image, and likeness, and should not be restricted from doing business. And this is going to happen. It'll go in front of there's still one more vote to go, but they should pretty much do it. So that means if this will start in 2021. If this had been enacted this year, a guy like James Wiseman could have not just attended Memphis to play basketball, but could have signed a deal to be what's their longtime sponsor, Lexus of Memphis.
Yep.
He could be the James Wiseman is he could have an autograph signing down at the Lexus of Memphis dealer, and people would go down there to sign an autograph, and they come in and maybe they buy a car, or he can be on billboards, they buy a Lexus, or he can do all sorts of different things. He can have a social media account, which I'm sure was big. I know I didn't follow, and hawk whatever he wants on there. He can sell T-shirts of his own. He can get sponsored by Nike. All the things that his fame and his talent allow, he could get. Obviously, he was not allowed to do any of that stuff, and it's part of the reason why, he needs money for moving and all this, and he's out. So all of that would have allowed a guy like James Wiseman to make money, and that's what will be allowed going forward. That I think a lot of us have been arguing should have been allowed anyway. This isn't the schools paying the players. It's the schools saying no one else can pay the players. And that's the big thing. Not every kid is going to get money. The same way every single woman on the United States gymnastics team is not a millionaire, but Simone Biles is. And that's just the way it works. So the better player, now this could be, obviously it's going to be football and men's basketball in a lot of places. But, there's the great star player up at women's player up at Oregon, or a women's basketball player at UConn or something. It could be a wrestler at Iowa State. It could be a skier at Colorado. It could be a women's hockey goalie at the Minnesota Duluth. It could be anything. So if you have value, you can now do that. Also, sometimes you have entrepreneurs, these kids, they want to start a different type of business, or they're a recording star also, or whatever other talent they have. The NCAA isn't going to stop you from doing that. So you can open up your own business. So it's a totally new era in college sports. It's basically a deregulation and a welcoming of some form of the free market into college sports.
So we know, because of what Sonny Vaccaro and Ed O'Bannon did, that was basically, the fight was, you don't own our name, likeness, image in perpetuity, right? So if there's a Oscar Robertson lithograph at Cincinnati, or frankly Ed O'Bannon is in a video game, you don't get to just sell that off for the rest of time and make money off of these athletes, even though they're not even at the school anymore. And that seemed logical to anybody that realized what was going on. Like, just throw these guys some money, which they did, in the end. But they stopped making the video games and whatever else. With this one, this is way different, because this is actually the current athletes. But just for point of reference, they even fought that. They fought that they should be able to own you forever. This, with the current athletes, is this all because, in your opinion, because California said we are going to allow our athletes to profit off of their name, likeness, and image?
I think you make a couple points. I think that was the final. It's not a straw; it's a log that helped break the camel's back. It was a big deal. But I also think they, through the years, lost the public opinion on this, and part of it was because they never would adapt to anything. I think what you just brought up with Ed O'Bannon in that video game, classics of the NCAA basketball tournament, and they got the 1996 UCLA basketball team, and there's a guy that looks exactly like Ed O'Bannon playing small forward and shoots lefty, and he's wearing Ed O'Bannon's number. And they go, no, it's not Ed O'Bannon. and even if it is, we're allowed to do it. Okay, they were so headstrong on they wouldn't give it
let me 20 seconds. That isn't Ed O'Bannon is the funniest, right? You know
that's what they did.
I know.
Like, well, how do you know? I mean, okay, who is it?
He's listed at 6'8". He's African American. He's wearing the number, and he's left-handed.
His head was shaved. It was like the same skin tone. He was a lefty. Like, come on, it's Ed O'Bannon.
What do you mean that's Ed O'Bannon?
What? I mean, what are you talking about? Like, it wasn't one of those, like, the old video games where every guy looks the same, it's a dot or whatever. It's Ed O'Bannon. If it's in the game, it's in the game, and Ed O'Bannon was in the game.
Yeah.
I remember.
Sure enough.
So that's what got them in trouble, I think. And at the end of the day, no matter what business you run, you want to run your own business. You do not want the government running your business. Because even if it was well-intentioned, it's probably going to screw up your business. Nobody wants regulation in their business. The NCAA dragged their feet for so long. They could have made Ed O'Bannon go away, which I think was a big body blow for this thing. If they just said, yeah, you're right, we owe these guys some money. I mean, what the heck, what are we doing here? Or, why is Cincinnati still profiting off of Oscar Robertson, 50 years later? I remember Desmond Howard having that. It was a famous picture of Desmond Howard at Michigan.
Yeah.
Where he poses for the Heisman in the end zone, and he's like, I can't even buy the picture or something. I mean, he wanted to buy the picture and then use it for himself, and he wasn't allowed. Like, it's a picture of me. There's so many ones like that. So now they eventually got thrown up against the wall because California, you make those arguments, and even the politicians are sitting there going, yeah, I mean, it was bipartisan. It was Republicans, Democrats, everybody, independents. They're like, yeah, this doesn't make any sense. And then they did it in Florida, and then all of a sudden every state was doing it. And it didn't matter. It wasn't a political cause. It was just like, this is common sense. That's where the NCAA lost this case. Now, I don't think this is bad for them. I think it's good for them.
Okay.
But
there are a bunch of things that can come up, though, Dan, because I know they kept using this word guardrails, as you mentioned in your article. And, I think with you and I, it's like, okay, we're doing this because we have to. We're jumping into it and saying it's okay. And now we'll just kind of make up the rules as we go. And one of the fascinating things to me was there are some very legitimate questions about this, which are like, and I brought up, UCLA signed that like $bazillion deal with Under Armour, right? If the point guard from UCLA, who just so happens to have just decided to go to the G League and make $300,000 or more doing that. But let's just say he is that great of a player. Everybody thinks he's going to be a pro, and Adidas wants to sign him to play in Adidas shoes his freshman year at UCLA. Like, you do have these massive conflict of interest, right? Who gets the money? Like, obviously, the schools are making the money from these big outlets because of who will be wearing them, right? Assuming they will get those players. But if some kid says, hey, I ain't sponsored by Under Armour, like the school is, but I'm not, like, I don't, that is something that's real. And obviously,
right.
Yeah.
Can you wear Under Armour shoes or Adidas shoes on a team where, like, who controls the shoe?
Right.
I don't know. They got to work that out.
Well, and the other thing is
they will have to wear a uniform that has an Under Armour logo, and the T-shirts are Under Armour, and all of those things.
And you do wonder, like, look, even we here at the show, you do deal with some conflict of interest things, right? If there are people that spend a lot of money to be sponsors of the show, then you can't, like, you're not going to go out and get their competitor, right? As a sponsor. And so if Tua, if whoever, Johnny Ringo Cadillac is the sponsor of Alabama football, but Tua goes and gets a deal with, Bud Cracker Cadillac, which could absolutely be a Cadillac dealership in Tuscaloosa. And he says, go get your Cadillac at Bud Cracker, and he's doing an autograph signing there, on Sunday after the big game. Like, you can't let that crap happen. So they do have to navigate some of that stuff, right?
That stuff happens, though. I mean, look, right now, if you watch an SEC football game, I think it's Nationwide that they have on the is a sponsor of the SEC, and they put, I think it's Nationwide, it might be State Farm, I don't know, but I think it's Nationwide, is in the, when they kick the field goal, the net, right? And I think Nationwide is the official sponsor of SEC football. What happens during the game is a commercial featuring Aflac and Nick Saban sitting there, not in Alabama gear. He's just there doing an Aflac
in a plain sweater.
Right, he wears the plain sweater because he can't get. Now, if Aflac became the official, then you see it too in the NBA. Like, if you become an official sponsor of
that's right
the NFL, you can get Tom Brady in a jersey. If you don't, he's just there working out in a T-shirt or whatever they got, right?
What I wonder, though, is let's just say me and you are running me and you, we're going to revive Reebok, right? Me and you are going to revive Reebok. It's a heritage brand. It's dormant for the most part, except for, like, CrossFit crap. But we're going to revive it. And we say, you know what? All these other businesses, they're spending a fortune with all these schools. Forget that. Let's just go get the players. Right?
That's what happened to the NBA, too.
I know. And I do.
Because, who are the official shoe sponsors of the Los Angeles Lakers? I don't know.
Right. None of those.
Don't care.
That's for sure. No.
Right?
Oh, no. I'm only saying, but that didn't take massive money out of the pockets of the Lakers. It would at these schools.
If they could control who wears their sneakers.
That's what I'm saying. And so I think that's got to be one of the guardrails. Like, if you come to our school, like, we can't step on, like, Zion Williamson can't wear Under Armour in our Nike uniforms at Duke. Like, this can't happen. Like, and make $100 million. I guess he could. But
that might be okay. Then what the school that lets him do it gets Zion Williamson.
Yeah, no, I know, but what I'm saying is, if I'm Nike, I'd go to Duke and I'd be like, what the hell? Like, no, no.
Although it'd be great if he blew out the Reebok.
Oh, I know, right? We spend an absolute fortune with you people. No,
they're going to spend less money. There's no question. You're going to spend less money,
right? And
okay, so there will be less money for the college edge.
Oh, listen, you and I both know this is exactly what they all knew, which is why they fought it like hell forever.
Yes,
because the stars are the ones that are, there will be 100%. There will be basketball players in college that can make a fortune on this.
Absolutely. Zion Williamson, before he got to Duke, 1.7 million Instagram followers. And clearly was going to be a massive sneaker deal, okay?
Yes.
You have, these TikTok stars. This is high school girl on TikTok, got 50 million followers in 6 months.
Unbelievable.
Right?
And all she's doing it, and she's just dancing.
And she's dancing for 11 seconds. Charlotte, she dances for 11 seconds, and she's making 50 million. I mean, so this is the world we live in. It's not 1975 anymore.
Right.
And the NCAA rules were from 1975. So you go, well, who? You go, that can't happen. Well, who's this woman? Who's this girl? Right? You know, it works. This is how it works. But here's my thing. What they're really worried about is this concept that Alabama Booster will just buy all the recruits. Oh, I'll just give you $100,000. You can be my official sponsor of my softball, my bar spot. You know, my Eddie's Lawn Care.
No, what's our place down there? What's our wing place down there? Bomb Hours. The former Bob Baumhour, the former Alabama great.
Yep.
He's got those great wing spots. So or what's the barbecue place? Dreamland Barbecue.
Dreamland Barbecue.
Yeah.
Right. But here's the thing: those places are businesses. They don't necessarily have thousands, all this money to throw around to recruit. But here's my thing: I think it levels the playing field. There's a wing spot at every college. There's a Ford dealer in every town.
Right.
Right now, what are the chances of Memphis beating Alabama for a football recruit? Virtually none. Kid would have to be from Memphis pretty much and just say, I'm not leaving. But what if Memphis can sit there and say, oh, well, we got Rendezvous, and you're now the rib guy at Rendezvous, and we can pay you more. And if you're the star at Memphis, and it's a lot easier to be the star at Memphis than at Alabama, you get the Rendezvous deal. But only Tua Tagovailoa is getting the Dreamland deal. And so all of a sudden, if you make money the factor, what is literally the first, when you're looking for a job, what's the first thing that would attract your eye?
I actually, we have not talked about this, and what you're bringing up is actually very brilliant, because we before you came on, we broached the subject. At the time, and the basketball team was, Memphis basketball was going on. The Grizzlies were already here. There is no question. D'Angelo Williams was the biggest athlete in this town. It wasn't even close. It wasn't even close. And the amount of money that D'Angelo, oh my goodness. I mean, every business.
You'd be the biggest star.
Yes.
Would you rather be, if you're choosing a school, you're getting recruited by Alabama as quarterback, you're a quarterback. And you're getting recruited by Alabama, you're getting recruited by Memphis or Boise State. Let's go Memphis, right? Mm-hmm. Boy, I can go there and be fifth in the depth chart and have to fight for playing time. I mean, freaking Jalen Hurts got run out of there. Guy was a second-round pick. Or I can go to Memphis and be a 3-year starter. You're going to Memphis. That's where the money is. First thing you think about on a job, salary. Mm-hmm. Someone can pay you more. If not, everyone would just go to the biggest companies because they've seen the most. If everyone was paid exactly the same, entry level to exit, you just all go to the same place. But because salary, you sit there and say, wait, it's more lucrative for me. Memphis can never compete with Alabama because they aren't in the SEC. They aren't on TV all the time, and they can't get enough booster. They're so far decades behind in booster spending. I mean, Alabama spent $96 million renovating their already unbelievably incredible football stadium, right? Mm-hmm. What would the Liberty Bowl could use $96 million? Because they're not doing part of it was we rearranged the flow of the Walk of Champions, right? Everything is spent on that. Now that's how they show recruits. This is where football matters. Well, what really matters is I got a really good chance. I think Memphis would do great in this. And let's talk about football. In basketball, why would you go to almost any SEC school other than Kentucky?
Well,
and not Memphis basketball.
And you've got a place that it really, really matters. You got all manner of old money. And by the way, your coach already has a deal for his own shoe with one of the shoe companies. Right. That's actually a little bit promising, right? If you needed a tie-in. This is a gold mine for Memphis sports. This is not, we're never going to compete now. Guess what? You don't compete now. No. I mean, you just don't. You don't really have a chance. But now you can. Now you can get better players. In basketball alone, all right, if you're sitting there, right now it's not unusual. SEC will beat, any conference for other conference in the South, right? So someone's going to sit there and say, I'm going to go play at Ole Miss basketball over Memphis basketball. And you go, why? Well, SEC. Okay, well, now money's on the line. Yep.
And you go, no, I'm playing Memphis. I mean, it's a bigger deal. No one in Mississippi sponsors. No, there's not going to be any.
I love that you're zigging.
Paying a recruit for basketball.
Yeah, I love your you're zagging on this while everybody's zigging. The whole idea that it's only going to be the big schools that benefit, but I think you make a very persuasive argument that if you are now all of the sudden
you want to be the big fish in any size pond.
Well, and also how do I compete? I walk into that living room, I can't tell them they're going to be on CBS every Saturday. Because they're not.
Right.
Or ESPN. And I can't tell them that they're going to have more national TV games or they're going to play against the best competition. Like all the things they sell.
Or a 100,000-seat stadium.
But what I can say is Rendezvous needs a spokesperson and the gig is $50,000. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you ain't getting you ain't getting that, if you go there.
Because you're our top priority. Like, like you said, D'Angelo is the biggest star. Like, the quarterback at Boise State is the biggest sports celebrity in all of Idaho. The quarterback at Nebraska, they can't recruit to Nebraska anymore. Well, they can now.
Yeah. Well, they might never be able to after that dreadful showing. Did you see that? After that poor Scott Frost. Were you watching this? He had to be watching the draft, just wanting to go jump on his roof and jump off the house. So they did this whole story about how Joe Burrow's dad was, played at Nebraska and all stuff. And he got went to Nebraska, and Scott Frost's quote was, "Is he better than what we've got?" It's like, and then the guy goes number one in the draft.
Yeah, that was a big. Okay, maybe Nebraska's cooked. I don't know, but how about this? Okay, so the same applies to Ole Miss or Miss State or Arkansas. Right now, to beat Alabama head up on a recruit, unless the kid's a local, there has to be a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Local. I mean, it's really hard. You're going to lose most of those recruiting losses. Well, look, Alabama may still sign the top first 10 picks. They're the first 10 guys they want. But that second 10, now you sit there and say, you're Ole Miss or you're Arkansas, which has tons of business interests. Say, hey, look, you're our priority. You're their 12th guy. You come with us, and you could be the star of, you want to be you can be the star out here in Arkansas, or you can be the star at Ole Miss. We got chicken joints. We got car dealers. We got all that stuff too. We just don't have as much of it.
Well, and
what we don't have is the stadium. Boom. I think it spreads it out in the SEC as well.
Also
outside of it. I could go all the way down to would you rather be the quarterback at North Dakota State in whatever that is, 1AA, in Fargo, North Dakota, or would you like to be another guy on Iowa State? I'd go to North Dakota. I just think this is going to be phenomenal for competitiveness.
And if you are, if little Johnny grows up to be a monster, pride of the town, right? You know what I'm saying? Like these kids that grow up and they're the pride of the town, whatever. And he's got to go somewhere else. Like, he's been famous since he was, in high school, and he led the team to state championships, and he's a big deal. But he ain't really going to go to the local school because he needs to go to he needs to go to Notre Dame, he needs to go to Michigan, he needs to go wherever. Like Johnny might actually stay around now, because we know the way it is. This is as you know about Memphis, it's a big little city, right? Alex Lomax has been he's a pretty good point guard who just finished his sophomore year at the University of Memphis. Everybody loves him, but he's like, people love him. He's from Memphis, and we've known about Alex for the last 6 years. He's been a name in the town.
And all along, and then for the rest of his life, he'll make more money playing at Memphis than if he'd gone to be another kid at the University of Kentucky.
Well, how about this one? How about this? He was, where he was going before Penny got the job? He was going to Wichita.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like that.
Right, the kid would have There's another program, though, that could do well, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, of course.
Wichita, you go in the whole city. Any of these little cities, the city schools, Memphis is like its own city-state, it's its own thing.
Yep.
And I just think it opens everything up because the money now goes directly. And so when you're looking at a job and someone offers you, 5% more, 10% more, and you go, let alone more than that, you're sitting there going, hey, I'm taking that job. Why'd you go work there and not here? Well, they're paying me $10,000 more a year. Okay, no question. No.
I'm with you. And this was necessary. There's going to be a whole bunch of people that come up with 100 million reasons why this isn't good, but let this thing play out. And I think it's going to be fun to watch, to say the least.
People who complain about things, and this is true in any life, and then all of a sudden they basically get what they want, instead of saying, this is great, this is huge progress, we'll take it, I'm going to move on to something else, they just keep finding new things to complain about.
Oh, hey, trust me. I come in here, I say every day, I say, look, this is what you have to remember, guys. If you hear something negative, you got to remember that there's 6,000 people that watched John Cena with a Make-A-Wish kid and pressed thumbs down on YouTube. Somebody watched that and like, I don't like this. I don't like this video of John Cena with his Make-A-Wish kid. Like, I mean, there's enough miserable people out there.
Baby from fire.
Yes,
yeah,
right.
Thumbs down. Yeah.
Thumbs down.
I don't like this.
I'm
a dog guy. Cats suck. Yeah.
Dan, you're the
exactly.
best.
Someone's going to complain, so this is good. And I really think it's a new era of college sports. Well, man, I think it's great for Memphis.
It's going to be great. Dan Wetzel from Yahoo.com. Thank you, buddy. You're the best. I don't know where I was in the whole scheme of it going on that I did not care deeply at the time. You watch that back, and it is criminal that they traded Grizz Vasquez. He is so awesome. And at the beginning of this game, Conley is awful in 11.
What are we talking about? We're talking about the Spurs game still?
Yes.
Conley gets
2 fouls in the first 2 minutes.
Vasquez plays 24 minutes in this game.
This dude comes in, he's hitting runners, he's doing no looks, and I'm like, he is a rookie walking into an elimination game, and this dude is so good.
After the game, and I reused this quote. The quote was from my original game story, and I reused it in what I wrote for tomorrow. And I think it was my question, but it may not have been. I don't know. It was a scrum after the game, right? In the locker room, Marcus always asked about what about the rookie, like, stepping up in the pressure. And Marcus all says, oh, he loves that. He's from Venezuela. He's from Venezuela. It's a lot tougher down there. Trust me.
He's unbelievable.
Yeah.
The other thing
and then he has a moment in the other game.
He does.
Big moment in the other game.
And here's the crazy one. So I'll get to the triple overtime in a minute. But Vasquez, in the games that we watched from 11, and you think if he's just the
he plays 3 minutes in game 1.
And if he's just the backup point guard for the next 3 years.
Yes.
It's a different world, man.
Yeah.
Because you should see the rats they brought in at backup point guard after that.
Jamal Tinsley.
It's crazy.
Gilbert Arenas barely moved. Yeah.
Crazy. Keon Dooling.
Playoffs.
Playoffs. And
they'll be talking about Dooling when Tony's in here, though.
And this guy came in here as a rookie, and he is just, there is a span of time where he is absolutely the best guy on the court that includes Hall of Famers. And it's just crazy to watch it back and to think, like, I don't know why I don't remember going insane over that. Maybe it's because it was for Pondexter and I liked Pondexter,
right.
and I knew that Lionel hated Grievous.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like, okay, well, that's not going to work long term anyway. And you're still on the high of the team being good. And so you don't care about as many things when the team is good, right? It's just the way it goes. Transactions can go by the wayside. But it's like, of course, we would have stayed bitching about the number 2 pick for eternity. But It just so happened that being good covered it up, more so. And I think that's probably true of the Grievous thing because it was at the very beginning of them getting good.
Right.
But when you go back and watch and you think, if this guy's the backup point guard for the next 3-4 years.
Because he had a couple seasons right after that where he was averaging like 8-9 assists a game, like, right?
He is outstanding. So much better than I remember.
He was so much fun to watch because he was a great passer and he played with such moxie and
He's just so much better than I remember even. Yeah. And then obviously we have the game ends. Everybody's chanting Zebo. I mean,
Chris Wallace grabs a growl towel. This is not on camera, but he runs out to Beale Street.
It's the first time. It's the first time, and we never, that's the other thing. No matter what ends up happening, as time goes on, and here's hoping that they've certainly got the building blocks that I could see a future of that team winning huge at the highest level. When you got a kid like Morant, that's in the cards. You'll never, the first time it happens, it's You're never going to be able to replicate that. No matter whatever happens, you just can't. You can't replicate that. And obviously, you were there at the time, and to watch it all back. I mean,
I remember to this day. I remember right after the game, back in the media room, talking to Mark Stein, who was covering for ESPN, and just talking to him about like what just happened, what that meant to the city, right?
Yes.
It was so much about the city and the fans, and that was the moment that it all came together and all clicked, right?
Yeah.
That was really the birth of a fan base, even though the team
Absolutely.
had been here a while and it had the previous playoff run. I don't know if you guys talked about this in the commentary, but one thing I didn't remember, and I went back and looked, and you guys had talked about in game one about just the way, how different it was in terms of style of basketball and the spacing and just how weird it looks relative to today. The best 3-point shooters on that team were O.J. Mayo and Shane Battier.
that's right.
In game 6 that they won, they combined for 0 attempts.
Yeah.
Neither of them even take a shot.
And
it is insane. I know he didn't play as many minutes. It is insane that Sam Young was the starter on that basketball team.
Insane. And I now go back and I do recall this, and Rose will remember this, because that was at the time where I was huge on pull those lineup numbers. What happened?
When I went back and read what I'd written, I did a whole thing on the lineup combinations.
Well, and the Battier Mayo one was so great.
Yep.
And it was, you had to spring forward, because if you looked at their stats were bad individually. It was that they required to be guarded 30 feet away, which opened it up for the other two guys.
I went back and looked, and I wrote it at the time. The most effective wing combinations, I didn't remember that using these stats back then, but I did.
Mm-hmm.
Was Mayo Battier, and then it was Mayo Tony, right? Those were the two best combinations in terms of effectiveness on the wing, and they're starting Sam Young and bringing Battier and Mayo off the bench.
Yep. Moving to the next game, and this is the one that is going to be shown on Sunday. This is the triple overtime game, which I have seen portions, if not more than portions, of the 2011 Game 6 game against San Antonio. I haven't seen anything about that. I was in the arena. I remember it and how epic it was. I have not seen it back. It's not like anybody would replay it as some kind of great Grizzly game. It is replayed, and that's under this context that we're doing it. I'll tell you again. I said twice to Tony, I'm like, bro, how good is Grizz Vasquez in that game too?
The shot he hits
oh my God.
I guess it's the first overtime. The end of the first overtime might be the craziest shot in Grizzlies history.
Conley hits one to take them to overtime. Yes. Grizz hits one. The other thing, it is long remembered that because I told the story and kept repeating it, that the next year when I went to training camp, the screensaver on Lionel Hollins' iPad was the play where they were in the huddle.
Was that from this game?
Yes.
Okay.
No matter what, do not leave James Harden.
Right.
Do not let them shoot a three. On that play, Westbrook goes carrying down, and he goes ends up on the baseline. So Grizz pinches in. Westbrook jumps up from underneath the basket to chuck it back out. Harden hits a three. When you and that just became something I think that anybody that listened to me, Grizzly fans, knew. He was never going to get over that. He obviously was a masochist with this whole Grizz Vasquez thing. Grizz gets traded. That's the end of that. And Grizz is the reason that they lost game 4, because that is what is perpetuated by the head coach. If you watch that game back, it is insane that became the narrative. And it's taken me all these years.
When does that play happen? At what point in the game?
There's a minute something left.
In the third overtime?
No. This is in the...
No, it wouldn't be the third overtime because they just ran off. The Thunder ran off.
Yeah, by that time. And by the way, we've got guys foul out.
Yes.
OJ takes over the game.
This is what I most wonder about. It's what I most remember personally from the game, and I have no idea to what degree. I don't think I've ever even seen this game televised because I was there, right? I don't know to what degree this is apparent on the broadcast or you guys talk about it. But Conley fouls out, and they're in a situation where they have to intentionally foul. And in this game, I'm sitting over in the area by the Grizzlies bench, and I can see OJ standing to check in and looking towards Lionel Hollins to the bench and saying, like, I got five.
You wrote this?
I think I wrote it, but I remember it clear as day, I think. And I remember OJ looking over, because I'm sitting sort of back behind sort of where Lionel is, right? I remember OJ looking over and saying, like, I got five. Like, but there, and Lionel and the coach are just saying, foul, we got a foul. To this day, it's not clear to me whether they recognize that OJ had 5 fouls, But he intentionally fouls himself out, and now Conley and OJ are both gone.
When you watch it, you lose your mind as a Grizzly fan.
Yeah.
Because it's so obvious. You know he's got 5 fouls.
I think the coaches didn't recognize it, or at least Lionel didn't.
They're doing offense-defense with him and Tony, too.
Yeah.
And he puts him back in the game, and OJ fouls the guy, and he walks to the bench all upset.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are we doing? We don't have our guys.
Right.
We don't have our guys. And OJ is awesome.
Yep.
When it matters most in this game. Like he hits 2, like they're about
He hits a 3 before the Vasquez 3.
Yes. They're about to just end the game. They're up like 7 with like a minute and something to go or something crazy like that.
The Thunder are.
Yes.
Yep.
And OJ hits the 3 and then Grass I mean, the way it all played out. And now again, your memory, it's 9 years later.
Yeah.
And the other thing is watching back a game where Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, and James Harden, who all ended up becoming NBA MVPs, are all on the same team. I just don't remember it.
Well, and you go into the third overtime, and they have Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. And now you don't even have Mike Conley and OJ Mayo.
No.
You've got Gravis Vasquez, Sam Young, and Tony Allen.
I know.
And the guys who've carried you there are Marc Gasol and Zach Randolph, who are like big, like heavy dudes. They weigh a combined like 550 pounds, and they played. I looked it up. They played a combined 113 minutes in that game. It's like 56 and 57 minutes each, and you're just out of gas in that third overtime.
No, and it's also crazy. Like in that Spurs series, we're watching it, and I'm like, it's a lot of DeJuan Blair, right? Because we're watching you will not see DeJuan Blair in Game 6.
No, Splitter had moved up by then, and they had changed their rotation.
How about this? The other thing, every time the camera pans over to the Spurs bench, which is littered with guys that are now NBA coaches, guess who else you see every time sitting on that bench?
Danny Green? He wasn't in the rotation yet. Yeah.
Not a minute.
Yeah.
And it's like, this team is so unathletic. And
right.
You know what I mean? Like, why is Danny Green not on this team? It's so weird. This one, there's always guys that show up. So I had talked to you before the first episode ran, and I told you there's a moment you never see Grievous, but Ish Smith checks in, and I'm like, I consider myself a Grizz scholar, but I like what there is in this Thunder game. There's at least 3 times where Nazi Muhammad makes a play, and I'm like, I have absolutely no recollection of Nazi Muhammad on the Thunder.
The Honorable Nazi Muhammad.
No, not. Do you?
No, I don't remember that.
It's great. No, he like really plays, and he like makes plays, and it's like Nazi Muhammad. I'm like, I don't even.
That's a different world when you already have Kendrick Perkins and Serge Ibaka and Nick Collison, and somehow Nazi Muhammad's getting in the game.
Well, and the other weird thing is, you might hear Ibaka's name one time. I'm not kidding. In the whole game, it's bizarre. And the other thing is, James Harden is James Harden, just in a Thunder uniform. I thought this is going to be wild to see like how he played, when he comes in off the bench, off this Thunder team. You're never going to believe this. He never passes. In the game.
Who was the backup point guard on that team? That Thunder
Eric
team?
Maynard.
Yeah,
That's
Eric
right.
Maynard.
Who
Eric
Tony's like, Eric Maynard was good.
Right.
I mean, he had injury. He had like tore his ACL and was never able to recover. He was a little older, I think, when he came in. But he was like a solid backup point guard. He is pretty good. If you watch the game, it's crazy. I'm like, there's a guy that just came in.
He's one of those VCU guys.
Well, they ended up with like Derek Fisher, after that, if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
But, they just had to do the veteran thing. But Eric Maynard, it's weird. It never played out for the Grizzlies or the Thunder. But Grievous Vasquez and Eric Maynard are 2 pretty damn good backup point guards coming in there as young guys on those teams. The Harden thing is hilarious. It really is. He still goes to the basket and, and he does his old like stutter steps and whatever. And Westbrook's obviously just reckless abandon at the basket.
Westbrook was huge in that game.
Yeah. Oh, and both. They really don't have much else. Like after those 3, like there's nobody that really does.
Daquan Cook was.
He's
on that
the only
team.
one, and he hits a couple of like corner threes.
Yeah, he kind of helped them get the run going. Daquan Cook did when he hit a couple of those.
Well, and the other thing is, you think about that Grizzly team, I think, see if you agree with this. I think I say this to Tony during the broadcast. I don't know. Everybody will have to watch it. That's the best team.
This is something that I wrote this morning, which will be in the Daily Memphian tomorrow. The context of that game against the Thunder, the Grizzlies, they're 8 seed, they beat the Spurs. They go in, they win game 1 in OKC. They win game 3 in overtime here. They got a chance to go up 3-1 in that series in this triple overtime game. If they make it through, they're playing the Mavericks in the Western Conference Finals. That Mavericks team was great. It won the title that year. It was not a juggernaut. And you would have had Zach Randolph, the best basketball of his life, and Dirk Nowitzki, best basketball of his life, these two unconventional power forwards going head-to-head in a Western Conference Finals. And that's an alternate history that I really wish we would have gotten, because the Grizzlies would have had a totally decent chance to get out of that series.
And here's the other crazy thing. If you look over as you're watching that game, it's this alternate history where you don't know, but there's 2 guys that are there on the bench. One is your lottery pick in Xavier Henry,
right,
and one is Rudy Gay. And it's like,
right,
are they good because
yeah,
these guys are on the bench, which is always a real discussion to have, right? Because look, Sam Young's starting, so we know that
we saw healthy Rudy in the playoffs the next year and how awkward that was on that team, right?
And does the Zach thing ever happen? If Rudy Gay, the answer is no, right? Like
Rudy's mind frame at that point in his career was, I'm the guy who needs to be taking these shots, right?
On the other hand, you think about how awesome that team was with 2 guys that, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's 2 guys that were starters on the team, and they're on the bench. Like, even if you just said that amount of money, that's $17, $18, $20 million that's on your bench.
Well, here's the other thing, and I didn't write this, about the idea that maybe that was the best Grizzlies team. I think one of the things that's forgotten about that whole period of Grizzlies basketball is Zach Randolph was incredible in those playoffs.
Yes.
The next season, there's the lockout. The season starts late. Game in Chicago, I think game 3 or 4 of the season, O.J. Mayo rolls into his knee, messes his knee up. So he finally comes back for the playoffs that next season, but he's not right. And he gets great again, but he never got 100% of the way back. And if you look at the way he came out of that playoffs in 2011, to me, he was set up to go into the next season as an all-NBA, like the closest thing to Dirk in terms of a scoring power forward who can dominate. He was set up to be that the next season, and the injury happened, and he never quite was again.
So as I say that with those guys on the bench, you off that bench, because of the way they set it up, they brought Grievous Vasquez, they brought O.J. Mayo, they brought Shane Battier, and they brought Darrell Arthur, who is at absolute peak of powers.
Well, the best Darrell is not, that's not one of the games you're showing, but it was game 3 or 4?
Yes, 3.
Game 4.
4.
No, game 3 was the one.
Because you just brought it up last week, right?
Game 3 is the one that was close, and Zach hits the big shot in the end. Game 4 is the beatdown. And Darrell Arthur,
the block
explode.
And then
Well, even before that, he's there's a stretch in that game in the third quarter, 5 or 6 minute stretch where he dominates the game.
Yep.
He's knocking down mid-range jumpers every time down the floor. He's blowing up pick and rolls defensively every time down the floor. And so it's like a series of jabs, and then the knockout blow is the block and the alley-oop from Mayo.
I mean, Vasquez, OJ, Battier, and Darrell is a hell of a foursome to bring off the bench when they're playing like they are.
Yeah, Darrell in that game, 14 points, 2 boards, 1 assist, 1 block, 7 to 10 from the field.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if you watch it, I don't care what stats say, he is such an impactful player.
Yeah.
Creating space, he is butter from 18 feet.
How's Metadati on that team? Like I loved it at the time because it was such an entertaining kind of thing.
Was he not in the? Is he not in the? He was in the broadcast the other night.
Yeah,
and he caught whatever. Which one? Maybe the second one that we did. It might have been in the second. Whatever the Warrior. No, it had to have been in the Spurs one. He comes in the game. He catches the ball. He takes 50 steps.
right.
And then he's like, "No, he stinks."
Like think you could find a better backup center than that.
And then the Tim Duncan dunk. There's a dunk where maybe that's in this game 6. I don't know.
Hamed has an abandoned ship moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Duncan like tomahawks on everyone, and me and Tony are both like, "Oh!" Like, I mean, it's bad. Bad. And like within milliseconds, Lionel pulls him out of the game.
Right.
Like he doesn't play. He's goofy. And he's like, he looks out of place. Tony said he's 7'7". Like, no, he's not. He's like, he was 7'7". I was like, no, he wasn't.
He's getting George Murison confused.
7'7". You got to be kidding me. Anyway, coming up this weekend, we're going to have Friday night is going to be. We agree on that. Our favorite game ever.
I think probably so. The other one I would say, which is coming up some other weekend, is the Game 6 against the Clippers that they won. That's the other one.
I think we're filming that this weekend. But the Game 6 of the 2011 Grizzlies Spurs series is going to be on Friday night, and then on Sunday, the triple overtime game, Game 4 of the 2011 series against Oklahoma City, the Western semis.
This has been the best of the Chris Vernon Show, presented by Direct Auto Insurance. Tune in to the live show daily at noon or on demand by heading over to grindcitymedia.com or Grind City Media on YouTube.